The text message glowed on my phone screen like a radioactive warning. Your mother is trying to set me up with Evan. She cornered me after the meeting, said you're not right for me, but your brother would make a perfect match. I'm so sorry, June. I read Derek's message 3 more times, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, trembling with an anger I thought I'd buried years ago. The familiar taste of bile rose in my throat as I pictured my mother's perfectly painted smile, her calculated movements, the way she'd probably touched Derek's arm while suggesting my own brother as his better option. When? I typed back, watching the 3 dots dance across my screen. Just now, the sustainability conference. She showed up claiming to support local businesses, but she had an agenda. Brought photos of Evan's college graduation. Kept mentioning his accomplishments. Of course she did. Mother's favorite prop, her golden child, her walking trophy. I slammed my phone down on my desk, scattering design sketches across the floor of my home office. The client deadline looming over me suddenly seemed irrelevant. My phone buzzed again. Should we talk about this? I couldn't, not yet. Not while my hands were shaking and my mind was spinning through 2 decades of similar manipulations. Every boyfriend, every friend, every opportunity, she'd found ways to poison them all. But trying to push my brother as a replacement? That was a new low, even for her. Maya's contact photo lit up my screen. Your mom just called me, she said when I answered, asking if I've noticed how unstable you've been lately. Said she's worried about Derek's future with you. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Let me guess, she mentioned Evan. Bingo, apparently he's single, successful, and would be perfect for, well, anyone who isn't you. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of my office window, watching the city buzz 14 floors below. She's systematically trying to destroy my engagement, Maya, like she's destroyed everything else. June. Maya's voice softened. Maybe it's time to what? Cut her off? I tried that. She just works harder to reach the people around me, turns them against me with her concerned mother act. I closed my eyes, remembering the last family dinner, how she'd questioned every decision I'd made, every project I'd taken on, all while praising Evan's new job in finance. She won't stop until she wins. Then maybe it's time you win instead. Something in Maya's tone made me pause. What do you mean? I mean, maybe it's time to beat her at her own game. You've got years of evidence. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the way she's turned your family against you. What if you exposed her? Really exposed her? The idea hit me like an electric current. She'd never recover from that. Exactly. Maya's voice dropped lower. And I might have something to help. Remember last Christmas when she had too much wine and started talking about Paul's first wife? My breath caught. The one she claims died in an accident? I did some digging. That story, it's not quite what she tells everyone. The possibilities started unfolding in my mind like origami in reverse. Every cruel word, every subtle sabotage, every manipulated relationship, they could all become weapons. I could finally make her feel what she'd made me feel all these years. My phone buzzed with another text from Derek. Your mother just sent me Evan's contact info. Says he's excited to meet for coffee. What should I do? I stared at the message, something cold and calculated settling into my chest. Nothing, I typed back. Don't do anything. I'll handle this. June? Maya was still on the line. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, I said, watching the sun set behind the city skyline, casting long shadows across my office floor. I think it's time Mother learned what it feels like to lose everything she values. The family photo mocked me from Mother's pristine mantelpiece, all of us arranged in perfect symmetry, frozen in a lie. I stood in her living room, waiting for the weekly dinner to begin, my fingers itching to smash the silver frame against the wall. June, darling, Mother's voice carried from the kitchen, dripping with artificial sweetness. Come help me with the plates. Evan's bringing someone special tonight. Of course he was. 3 days after trying to set my fiancé up with my brother, and she was already parading some new perfect match for him. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror as I moved toward the kitchen. Shoulders tight, jaw clenched, the perfect daughter facade already cracking. I heard about the sustainability conference, I said, keeping my voice level as I entered her domain of gleaming countertops and color-coordinated appliances. Derek mentioned you were there. She didn't even flinch. Oh yes, fascinating stuff. That boy of yours certainly knows his business. She handed me a stack of plates, her manicured nails clicking against the china. Though I worry it's all a bit unstable, these green initiatives, they come and go. His firm just landed 3 major contracts. She adjusted a flower arrangement with surgical precision. Did you know Evan's new friend works in traditional energy? Very solid career path. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Mother's face lit up with that particular glow reserved for her golden child. That'll be them. I set the plates down harder than necessary, the china rattling like my nerves. Paul appeared from his study, giving me that familiar look of helpless sympathy as he passed. Evan's voice filled the foyer, followed by female laughter. I stepped into the hallway and froze. The woman beside my brother wasn't just anyone. It was Caroline, Derek's ex-girlfriend from college. June! Caroline's surprise seemed genuine enough, but her eyes darted to Mother, who was beaming like she'd just orchestrated a corporate merger. I had no idea you'd be here. Funny coincidence, I managed, though my throat felt full of glass. Small world, isn't it just? Mother touched Caroline's arm. When I ran into you at the conference, I just knew you and Evan would hit it off, and to think you already know the family. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Derek, wondering why his ex was suddenly dating my brother. I left it unanswered, watching Mother guide everyone to the dining room like a conductor leading her orchestra. June, Paul caught my arm as I passed. Your mother, she's just trying to… To what? I yanked free. Destroy my engagement? Replace me with a better version? Don't defend her, Paul. Not tonight. The dinner was an exercise in psychological warfare. Mother placed Caroline directly across from me, ensuring I had a perfect view of every touched arm, every shared laugh with Evan. The conversation circled like vultures around Derek's business, with pointed comments about risky ventures and traditional values. Remember that summer internship you and Derek did together? Caroline asked sweetly, cutting into her perfectly cooked salmon. He was so passionate about renewable energy even then, almost obsessive, really. Speaking of obsessive, Maya's words from our earlier conversation echoed in my head. I found something interesting about Paul's first wife. I studied Paul's face across the table, the way he avoided Mother's eyes, how his hand shook slightly as he reached for his wine. What secrets was he keeping about his past? What hold did Mother have over him? June? Mother's voice cut through my thoughts. You're awfully quiet tonight. Just thinking about the future, I said, meeting her gaze. How everything eventually comes to light. Something flickered behind her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. Good. More wine? Evan offered, but his hand trembled slightly as he lifted the bottle. I caught his expression, a flash of guilt, quickly masked. He knew. He had to know what Mother was doing. My phone buzzed again. This time I checked it under the table. Maya. Found the death certificate. It doesn't match her story, not even close. I looked up at my mother, arranging her world like pieces on a chessboard, and felt a cold clarity settle over me. She thought she was teaching me a lesson about control. Instead, she was teaching me exactly how to destroy her. Everything okay? Caroline asked, all concern and perfect teeth. I smiled, channeling Mother's own brand of sweetness. Never better. In fact, I think things are about to get very interesting. The death certificate lay on Maya's coffee table like a loaded gun. My hands shook as I read the cause of death: acute barbiturate toxicity, not the car accident Mother had always described to the family. There's more, Maya said, sliding another document across the table. Police reports, witness statements. Your father's first wife didn't just die, there was an investigation. The autumn rain pelted Maya's apartment windows, matching the storm building inside my chest. My phone buzzed. Another message from Derek about Caroline's sudden appearance in our lives. I ignored it. Mother knew, I said, the pieces clicking into place. She used this to control Paul all these years. Maya nodded. The case was never solved, but there were suspicions about Paul's involvement. Your mother was the key witness who provided his alibi. A knock at the door made us both jump. Maya checked the peephole and swore under her breath. It's Paul. My stepfather stood in the hallway, rain dripping from his coat. His eyes fell on the document spread across the table, and something in his face crumbled. I should have known you'd find out eventually, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Your mother. She has a way of making sure everyone's secrets work for her. Sit down, I said, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. Tell me everything. Paul sank into an armchair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Sarah, my first wife. She was troubled. Depression, anxiety. The police they thought I'd taken advantage of her state, given her the pills. But you didn't. His hands twisted in his lap. I loved her, but there were things about that night I couldn't explain. Your mother was the only one who believed me, or said she did, and she's held it over you ever since. June, Paul leaned forward, you don't understand what she's capable of, the way she can twist things, make the truth dance to her tune. My phone lit up with a text from Evan. Mom's telling everyone Derek made a pass at Caroline, says she has proof. The rage that filled me was arctic, crystalline. I understand exactly what she's capable of, and it ends now. Paul grabbed my arm as I stood. What are you planning? The truth, Paul. All of it. Sarah's death, Mother's manipulation, everything she's done to this family. She'll destroy you. No, I pulled free. She'll try, but I'm not the scared little girl she can push around anymore. Maya's phone chimed. She read the message and went pale. June, your mother just called an emergency family meeting. Tonight. Says she has disturbing news about Derek she needs to share. Paul's face went ashen. She's making her move. Good. I gathered the documents, my mind racing ahead. Let her think she has the upper hand. June, Paul's voice cracked. There's something else you should know about Sarah's death, something I've never told anyone. But before he could continue, my phone exploded with messages. Derek, your mother just sent me photos, doctored photos, of me and Caroline. Then Evan, Mom's losing it. She's calling everyone we know. And finally, Mother herself. Darling, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but as your mother, I feel it's my duty. I deleted her message without reading further. Maya, I need you to make copies of everything. Paul, you need to decide right now. Are you with me or with her? He stared at the death certificate, at the truth he'd hidden from for decades. Sarah she would want the truth to come out. Then let's give her that. And Mother, she can finally learn what it feels like to lose everything she's built on lies. As we gathered the evidence and prepared for the confrontation ahead, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about breaking free from the web of lies that had entangled our family for generations. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from an unknown number. I was Sarah's sister. I've been waiting 30 years for someone to ask the right questions. I looked at Paul, saw the recognition in his eyes. Time to end this, I said. All of it. The rain had stopped, but the storm was just beginning. Sarah's sister sat across from me at the corner cafe, her hands wrapped around an untouched coffee. The family resemblance was striking, the same haunted eyes Paul sometimes got when Mother wasn't watching. I kept every letter, Rachel said, sliding a worn envelope across the table. Sarah knew something was wrong. She tried to tell me, but I didn't understand until it was too late. My phone buzzed. Mother's name flashed on the screen, followed by a string of missed calls from Evan. I silenced it. What exactly did Sarah know? Rachel's fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. It wasn't just about Paul. Your mother, Linda. She was already in the picture. Before? The cafe door chimed. Derek walked in, his face tight with concern. He hadn't been invited to this meeting. Someone had told him. June, he said, approaching our table. Your mother just showed me everything. The photos, the emails. Why didn't you tell me about Paul's past? Rachel stiffened, gathering her letters. I should go. No, I caught her arm. Derek needs to hear this too. I turned to my fiancé. Whatever Mother showed you, it's not the whole truth. It never is with her. She said you're becoming obsessed, like Sarah was. Derek's voice cracked. That you're seeing conspiracies everywhere. Rachel laughed, a bitter sound. That's exactly what Linda said about Sarah. Right before, my phone lit up with a text from Maya. Paul's gone, left a note saying he's sorry. Linda's calling everyone. The ground seemed to shift beneath me. Mother's voice echoed in my head from years ago. Careful, June. You're starting to sound just like her. The letters, Rachel continued, oblivious to my internal earthquake. Sarah wrote about Linda's visits when Paul was away, about the pills that kept appearing in her medicine cabinet, pills she never prescribed. Derek sank into a chair, his face ashen. June, what have you gotten yourself into? The truth, I said, but my voice wavered. I thought exposing Mother would be enough. But this is bigger than her manipulation, isn't it? Rachel nodded slowly. Sarah's death wasn't just about Paul. Linda needed him vulnerable, needed someone to save him from scandal, to bind him to her forever. My phone buzzed again. Evan. Mom found Paul's old case files. Says she's going to the police about you harassing Sarah's family. June, what the hell is happening? The cafe walls seemed to close in. Mother's master play was unfolding, painting me as the unstable daughter, obsessed with old tragedies, while she remained the concerned parent trying to protect everyone. Derek, I turned to him, seeing the doubt in his eyes. Do you trust me? He hesitated, just for a moment, but long enough. I trust that you believe all this, but June, the evidence your mother has is exactly what she wants you to see. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. Rachel, those letters, would you testify about what Sarah wrote? That's why I'm here. She met my eyes. Linda destroyed my sister. I won't let her destroy you, too. My phone lit up one final time. A message from Paul. I can't fight her anymore, but in my study, behind the painting of the lake house, everything you need is there. I'm sorry, June. I should have been stronger. The choice crystallized before me. Back down and let Mother win, or push forward and risk losing everything. Derek, my reputation, maybe even my freedom. June? Derek reached for my hand. Whatever you're planning. I pulled away. You should go. Mother will expect you to distance yourself from me now. It's what she's counting on. And if I don't, then you'll be dragged down with me. I gathered Rachel's letters, my hands steady despite everything. I have to finish this. For Sarah, for Paul, for everyone she's broken. As Derek and Rachel watched, I walked out of the cafe into the gathering darkness. Mother wanted to play her end game? Fine, but she'd forgotten one thing. I'd learned from the best how to destroy someone completely. My phone rang one last time. Evan. He's dead, my brother sobbed. June, Paul's dead. They found him an hour ago. Mom says you pushed him too far. The world stopped spinning. Mother's ultimate move, played to perfection. Now the real war would begin. The lake house painting hung crooked on Paul's study wall, a final act of defiance or perhaps just carelessness. Behind it lay a USB drive and a leather-bound journal, exactly where he said they'd be. My hands shook as I reached for them, but footsteps in the hallway froze me in place. I knew you'd come here first. Mother's voice sliced through the darkness. She didn't bother turning on the lights. Just like Sarah, always searching for answers that weren't there, I kept my hand behind the painting. Did you push him to it, or just wait for the inevitable? Your father was troubled. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor. The police understand that, just like they'll understand how your obsession with old tragedies pushed him over the edge. My phone vibrated, Maya warning me that Mother had already spoken to the detectives, that she'd shown them my harassment of Sarah's family, my unstable behavior at family gatherings. What's on the drive, Mother? She stepped closer, moonlight catching the silver in her hair. Nothing that would help you. Paul was creative with his record keeping, paranoid even. The police might find that interesting too. The study door creaked open wider. Evan stood there, his face hollow with grief. June, please, just let it go. Haven't we lost enough? But I saw Mother's slight smile at his words, recognized the careful coaching in his tone. How many times had she used him like this, made him her unwitting weapon? Tell him, I said to Mother. Tell him about the pills in Sarah's cabinet, about how you visited her when Paul was away. June, Evan's voice cracked. Mom's right. You're not well. After everything with Derek. What about Derek? Mother's smile widened fractionally. Oh, didn't you know? He came to me, concerned about your behavior, about your obsession with Sarah's death. He and Caroline have been supporting each other through this difficult time. The USB drive dug into my palm. You're lying. Check your phone, darling. The pictures are probably online by now. I did try to warn you about him. My screen lit up with notifications, social media posts, messages from friends. Derek and Caroline at a restaurant, heads bent close together, their hands entwined on the table. It's not what you think. Evan stepped forward. Caroline manipulated those photos. I saw her. He stopped abruptly as Mother turned to him. The air shifted. Something in Evan's slip made Mother's mask crack, just for a moment. Fear flickered across her face. What did you see, Evan? I pressed, watching Mother's reaction. What else has Caroline been doing? Nothing. Mother cut in. Evan's upset, confused. We all are. Paul's death. Was it death, Mother? Or murder, like Sarah? She moved faster than I expected, her hand striking my cheek with practiced precision. The USB drive clattered to the floor. Evan lunged forward not to help her, but to grab the drive. Our eyes met as he picked it up, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Determination. Mom, he said quietly, I found your old phone, the one with the messages to Sarah. Mother went very still. Evan, give me the drive. No. He backed away, looking between us. I'm tired of the lies, of being your perfect son, your weapon against June. Sarah tried to warn Paul about you, didn't she? And now he's dead too. Everything I did, Mother's voice trembled, was to protect this family, to give you the life you deserved. By destroying everyone else's, I reached for the journal behind the painting. Let's see what Paul really thought about your protection. Mother's composure shattered. She lunged for the journal, but Evan blocked her path. In the struggle, papers spilled across the floor. Medical records, photos, handwritten notes, and Sarah's distinctive scrawl. "It's over, Mother," I said, gathering the evidence. "Paul left us everything we need to prove what you did. To both of them." She straightened, smoothing her clothes with shaking hands. "You'll destroy this family. Is that what you want?" "No," Evan answered before I could. "You already did that. We're just finally breaking free." As we left the study, Mother called after us, her voice carrying a warning I'd heard all my life. "You'll regret this, both of you. You have no idea what you're doing." But for the first time, her threats felt empty. We had the truth now, all of it. And tomorrow, everyone else would too. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Detective Morris's face as she laid out the photos. Paul's body in his car, the empty pill bottle, the suicide note in Mother's perfect forgery of his handwriting. "Miss Carter," Morris said, "your mother's concerned about your obsession with Sarah's death. Says it started after your fiancé left you for Caroline. Derek didn't—" I stopped, remembering the photos Mother had manufactured, the carefully crafted narrative she'd been spinning while I searched Paul's study. "We have witnesses placing you at Paul's house the night he died, and these—" She pushed forward printouts of emails, conversations I'd never had, plans I'd never made, all wearing my digital signature. My phone buzzed. Maya. "Linda's talking to the medical examiner. She has Paul's old prescriptions. Your mother mentioned you've been under considerable stress," Morris continued, "that Paul was trying to help you, but you blamed him for enabling Linda's— what did you call it? Psychological torture?" The door opened. Evan stood there, his face ashen. "June, Mom's pressing charges. She says you stole Paul's medication, that you'd been stockpiling it." The USB drive felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. But Mother had thought of that too. Paul's paranoid record keeping would only prove her point about my instability. "Where's the journal?" I asked Evan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom found it. Said it was evidence of your deteriorating mental state." Of course, she'd probably planted it herself, filled with exactly the kind of desperate ravings that would convince everyone I'd lost touch with reality. "Detective," I tried to keep my voice steady, "Sarah's sister Rachel has letters. Written 30 years ago by a troubled woman who died by suicide?" Morris's tone was gentle now, practiced sympathy. "Your mother showed us those too, explained how finding them triggered your breakdown." My phone buzzed again. "Derek, I'm sorry, June. Your mother showed me everything. The therapist reports, the medication history. I can't be part of this anymore." The walls seemed to close in. Every piece of evidence, every ally, every chance at exposing the truth. Mother had systematically destroyed them all. She'd been playing this game since before Sarah died, and I'd walked right into her trap. "June," Evan's voice cracked. "Please, just tell them what they want to hear. Mom says she can get the charges dropped if you agree to treatment." Treatment. Like Sarah. Like all the other inconvenient truths Mother had buried in institutions and carefully constructed narratives. Detective Morris slid a confession across the table. "Your mother's worried about you. Says this isn't about punishment. It's about getting you help." My phone lit up one last time. An email from an unknown address. The subject line: "Sarah knew the truth about Linda, too." But before I could open it, Morris took my phone. "Evidence," she said kindly. "Standard procedure." Evan touched my shoulder, his fingers trembling. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She has photos of me too, with Caroline. Things I never. She says she'll destroy my life if I don't cooperate. The final piece clicked into place. Mother hadn't just outmaneuvered me. She'd compromised everyone around me, made them all complicit in her lies. Ms. Carter, Morris pushed the confession closer. Your mother's waiting outside. She wants to help you through this. I could almost hear Mother's voice. Sometimes we have to be cruel to be kind, darling. The confession sat before me like a loaded gun. Sign it, admit to paranoid delusions, and Mother wins everything. Refuse and face charges for Paul's death, with every shred of evidence pointing to my guilt. I need a moment, I said, standing so abruptly my chair crashed backward. Just one moment. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. Mother's eyes staring back at me, her determination etched in my features. She'd taught me everything about manipulation, about patience, about revenge. Maybe too well. My phone was gone, but I had one number memorized, one person Mother didn't know about, one last card to play. But using it would mean crossing a line I'd promised myself I never would. Becoming exactly what Mother always said I was, her true daughter, capable of anything. The choice crystallized: surrender to her narrative, or become something worse than she ever was to bring her down. In the mirror, I watched myself make the decision, and for the first time, I understood why Mother always smiled when she destroyed someone completely. The retirement home's visiting room smelled of antiseptic and secrets. Grandmother Claire sat in her wheelchair, her hands folded neatly in her lap, just like Mother's always were. I wondered when you'd find me, she said, her voice carrying that same cultured tone I'd heard all my life. Linda learned everything from me, you know, including how to break people. I placed Sarah's letters on the table between us. Did you help her with Sarah, too? Help her? Claire's laugh was brittle. I taught her, just like my mother taught me. There's an art to destroying someone while looking like their savior. The security camera in the corner blinked red. Everything was being recorded, just as I'd arranged. Paul wasn't the first, I said. Before him, there was James, and before James, Thomas, all of them with troubled first wives who conveniently disappeared. Claire's fingers twitched. You've done your homework, more thoroughly than Sarah did. She didn't have access to sealed records, or to Mother's old therapist, the one who documented everything before her mysterious accident. The door opened. Mother stood there, exactly as I'd planned. Her face went chalk white at the sight of Claire. What a lovely surprise, Claire smiled. My daughter and granddaughter both here to visit. Though I suspect June didn't mention inviting you, Linda. June. Mother's voice was warning and plea combined. Whatever you think you're doing. Tell her about the pills, I cut in, watching Claire. The ones that showed up in Sarah's cabinet, the same ones that killed your first husband's wife, and his second wife. The family recipe, passed down through generations. Mother stepped forward, but Claire raised her hand. Let her talk, Linda. She's earned that much. She's more like us than either of us expected. I'm nothing like you. No? Claire's eyes glittered. Then why did you arrange all this? The recording, the witnesses waiting outside, the careful manipulation of everyone involved, including poor Evan, convinced to wear a wire during his last conversation with his mother. That's our legacy, dear. The perfect blend of truth and lies, wrapped in just enough evidence to destroy someone completely. Mother's composure cracked. You told me never to speak of, and you told me never to question you. I stood facing her. But Paul didn't he? Just like Sarah. They saw through the act, started asking questions, so they had to go. Everything I did was to protect this family. No, Claire's voice cut through Mother's protest. Everything you did was to protect yourself, just like I taught you, just like my mother taught me, the careful cultivation of witnesses, the slow isolation of your target, the perfectly timed revelations of their instability. Watching you work was like looking in a mirror. Mother's hands trembled. You swore you'd never tell anyone? Claire smiled at me. But she's family, Linda, and she's proven herself worthy of our traditions. More worthy than you, perhaps. She's taken everything we taught you and turned it back on itself. Beautiful work, really. The door opened again. Detective Morris entered, followed by Rachel and Evan. Mother's carefully constructed world began to crumble visibly around her. The thing about manipulation, I said, watching her face, is that it works best when people trust you completely, when they never suspect you'd turn their own tactics against them. June, Mother whispered, please. That's exactly how Sarah begged. Claire commented, wasn't it, Linda? And all the others before her? Mother lunged for the letters, but Evan caught her arm. The wire under his shirt crackled with her confession. Everything I did for you. Just like she taught me. It was all for the family. No, Mother. I stayed perfectly still, perfectly controlled, just as she'd taught me. It was all for control, and now you've lost it. As Detective Morris began reading her rights, Mother stared at me with something like pride mixing with her despair. You truly are my daughter. No, I picked up Sarah's letters, Rachel's evidence, the recordings of Claire's confession. I'm what you created, but unlike you, I'm using it to end this legacy, not continue it. Claire laughed softly as they led Mother away. Are you sure about that, dear? Because from where I sit, you've proven yourself a perfect heir to our family tradition. I left them both there, Mother in handcuffs, Claire in her wheelchair, and walked into the harsh sunlight of truth and consequence. The weight of victory felt heavier than I'd expected, tasting of ashes and echoing with the cost of becoming what I'd sworn to destroy. Mother's old desk drawer stuck, just like it always had. Inside lay a leather journal I'd never seen before, its pages filled with her precise handwriting. The house around me echoed with emptiness. No more perfect family photos. No more carefully curated appearances. The first entry was dated 30 years ago. Claire says I'm ready, that I understand what needs to be done to protect our legacy. Sarah asks too many questions, sees too much, just like I did with my father's wives. My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Each entry detailed another calculated move, another life carefully dismantled. The familiar methodical precision felt like looking in a mirror. The doorbell rang. Derek stood on the porch, looking uncertain. Maya told me everything about Claire, about what really happened to Paul. I held up the journal. Want to know something worse? I understand her now. Every decision, every manipulation, it all made perfect sense to her. Still does. June, I became exactly what I needed to be to destroy her, used her own tactics against her, and it worked perfectly. He stepped closer but didn't touch me. Is that why you asked me to come? To confess? No. I walked to the kitchen, where a pot of coffee sat cooling. Mother's favorite blend. I asked you here because I need a witness. For what? I pulled out a stack of documents, property deeds, bank accounts, everything Mother had accumulated through decades of manipulation. I'm giving it all away, to Sarah's family, to Paul's relatives, to everyone she destroyed, every penny, every possession. Can you do that legally? She signed everything over to me, her final power play, trying to make me her true heir. I laughed, but it caught in my throat. She still thinks I'll keep the legacy going. The journal's last entry was dated the day of her arrest. June has finally become what she was meant to be, my greatest achievement. Derek read over my shoulder. She's wrong about you. Is she? I closed the journal. I manipulated everyone. You, Evan, the police, used every trick she ever taught me. But not for control, not for power. Does that make it better? The doorbell rang again. Evan stood there with Maya, both carrying boxes. Ready? My brother asked. We worked in silence, packing up Mother's life. Each object felt weighted with memories, with calculated choices. The photos, the trinkets, the carefully maintained facade of perfection, all of it boxed away. In Mother's bedroom, I found one last journal, hidden beneath floorboards I'd known about since childhood. But this one was different, tear-stained, messy, real. Claire's voice echoed through its pages, teaching a young Linda the art of control, of manipulation, of survival through dominance. June? Maya stood in the doorway. The donation trucks are here. I traced Mother's signature on the final property transfer. Did I tell you what she said that last day in court? You'll understand someday. When you have children, you'll want to make them strong enough to survive. And what did you say? Nothing, but I'm saying it now. I signed the papers, giving away the last of her empire. The legacy ends here. Derek touched my shoulder. What about the journals? I looked at the evidence of 3 generations of calculated destruction. Claire's lessons, Mother's perfection, my own emerging talent for manipulation. The family gift, passed down through pain and power. Keep them, I decided, as a reminder of what we're capable of, what we choose not to become. Evan picked up the last box. Mom asked to see us. Said she has more to tell us about Claire, about our real grandmother. No, I said, and felt the weight of Mother's influence finally lift. Some stories don't need to be continued. We locked the empty house, leaving behind the ghosts of perfect family dinners and carefully orchestrated lives. The donation trucks pulled away, carrying Mother's legacy to better purposes. The journal in my bag felt heavy with unspoken warnings, but as I watched her carefully constructed world dissolve into something kinder, I realized that understanding her hadn't meant becoming her. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destruction, but in choosing a different path entirely. Maya hugged me goodbye, whispering, "You okay?" I looked at the empty house, thinking of Mother in her cell, still believing she'd shaped me in her image. No, I said honestly, but I will be.